My dear viewers, beginning today is the official Alliteration Gaming Patreon and channel members. Throughout my Patreon, we've got quite a few tiers you can check out in order to gain special perks and even commission videos that you'd like to see me upload onto the channel. Every tier includes a shout out on my supporter card at the beginning of all of my videos, along with the benefits of the tier itself. Following that, you can now also join the Alliteration Nation by becoming a channel member on the YouTube side of things. Pledging your subscription here as a member of the channel is going to grant you the same shout out on my supporter card as all the Patreon tiers do, as well as access to the members only channel on my Discord. You'll gain a member badge that will level up as you stay subscribed and access to my exclusive emotes when I stream on YouTube. If you're interested in checking out the Patreon, I'm going to have the link in the description and in the pinned comment down below, as well as the link to my Discord should you want to join that as well. And if you want to become a channel member, the big beautiful join button is front and center on my homepage right here. And if you do decide to support the channel in any way whatsoever, know that I am unimaginably grateful, and I can't wait to provide you with even more top-notch content at my trademark top speed. Now, let's get on to the video. Welcome my dear viewers to another Alliteration gaming video. My name's Levi, and it is Wednesday. Those two things mean that it's time for Wealthy Aspirations. This is our weekly Market Watch series, where we go through a handful of cards that I've picked out on TCG Player, and just go over them, talk about why they might be increasing soon, why they might be decreasing soon, why they might be where they are price-wise, and just in general everything there is to know about this card and its value in the secondary market. Last week we tried this out as a very different new type of format for the series, and a lot of people gave me some very awesome feedback on it. Thank you guys so much. It looks like y'all like this a lot more than just kind of the global going over the whole market and just kind of spotting and picking out things that look interesting as we browse through them. This is going to be a much more streamlined format, and I'm very down to continue with this because it seems like it's a much better viewing experience, and I really couldn't agree more. So let's get right into it. The first card that I have to talk about is Blood Moon Rending. Blood Moon Rending's XR specifically, because I don't think the URs will ever really be expensive, but the XR has seen some pretty wild price fluctuations. You know, we saw a lot of them sell really early on for more in like the 25-30 range, then they started dipping to like $10, $5, etc. Then they're finding their way all the way back up to like a $13 kind of place. But really, Set 4 is kind to a lot of things, guys, and one of the biggest things that it's kind to is weapons. There are so many good weapon packages. Between Moonfish's weapons, Spinner's weapons, Toga weapons, there are so many new things. That's not a Blood Moon symbol for Toga's weapons, but still there's a lot of new weapons in Set 4 that really make Blood Moon shine a lot more. There's a lot of weapon foundations as well, which make it a lot more consistent, and it's a card that I've seen a lot of people much more hyped up to play, and I would not be surprised to see these XRs start selling quite a bit, so keep an eye on them. I think 12 either way is like a really good price. I think probably anything under 15 is a really good price for this. After that, I would maybe reconsider, but they could end up looking a lot worse than that once the set comes out, so keep an eye on it. Next up, we got Freezer Burn. This is one that saw some pretty crazy buyout territory. There's now back one in stock for $18. Everything else is like 25, 30 onwards, which I think is still pretty crazy. Just continue to keep an eye on this one. I still don't think that this is a good price for this card. If you're really desperate, this is not like a terrible one, although it is lightly played, so that is kind of a noteworthy thing there. But I think that this one we still need to wait for it to go down quite a bit more, because it's still just in a very volatile reactionary place. I think we will eventually see these $13, $10 price points again for this one. Next up, we got Stun Grenade. This one is one that's also seen some really cheap prices, and also some very crazy prices and some very crazy buyouts. Right now, there's a handful of them for $15 in stock with $3 shipping, and then one for $33. I think this is a solid price for this. $15 is like what I would like to pay for an XR Stun Grenade, so if you're still in the market for them, I don't think this is a bad price. If you don't want to wait for them to possibly, you know, like mass restock eventually as the future gets closer, and then maybe find more of that like $9, $12 price point. I don't think it's like a big gap worth waiting for, so I think this is a really great time to pick up a full playset, actually, if that's what you're looking for right then and there. Next up, I got Press Conference. Press Conference has seen some pretty crazy price fluctuations. Right now, there's a couple you can get for like the $10, $11 price point, which I think is pretty good, all things considered. This is obviously a little bit insane, but as you can see, Way back in the day, you were able to pick these up for like $4, etc., $5. Man, $2 on that one, that's primo right there. But even like in this new day, I think $9 is like a really, really good price. So if you're still looking for some, here are a few that you can get your hands on. Next up, I have basic training, and I've actually got easily excited too. Just want to talk about both of these. I kind of highlighted these every week in the past, but I think these are very, very, very cheap for what they are. There's a lot of them on the market, but I think eventually this $5, $6 price point is something that's going to leave. It's already starting to leave for easily excited. These are slowly inching their way up and up. Staple, zero difficulty, foundation XRs are something that always see crazy prices eventually down the line because they're so sought after and people just like having them, to be honest with you guys. So I would be keeping an eye on these. If these are one of those XRs that, you know, I wouldn't be looking to like scalp these or like make money off of them because I don't know if it's like that worth that. But if they're ones you've been on the fence about buying, I think they're really it's just never really a bad time to pick these up before they potentially one day get really out of hand. Next is Snack Time. Snack Time saw a buyout recently and was seeing some pretty crazy fluctuations after that. Right now it's kind of resettled back at $5, and I think it's a great time to hop on these if you don't have them yet. You don't want to see another buyout and then have them come back at even like crazier numbers. They've never really sold for these crazy numbers, but again, the fear is always there. You know, this is kind of one that I'm recommending based on like FOMO, but I still think that if you're like, if tomorrow you would be sad to see these all gone and see one in stock at $20, if that would make you personally sad, it's a good time to pick these guys up. Next is Chivalrous Competitor. This is the big one this week, guys. This one has seen a lot of really crazy numbers ever since its release. At first, it was very cheap. Then people realized it was one of the most important cards in the metagame because of Season the Advantage being like the most important card in the metagame. And they've kind of been fighting like a $15 number ever since. And now the numbers have really finally gotten caught up to them. We have one in stock at 20, 4 in stock at 27. Do not buy these. These are crazy prices. Honestly, the 20 might become a new standard because I don't know if we're getting a lot of these anytime soon. We're kind of entering a weird juncture where I don't think people are really opening set 3 very much anymore. The Chrome Rare craze has kind of fallen off, and as far as new Chivalrouses coming on the market, that's a really tall order. So $20 might become the new standard for this card, which I think would be pretty wild, but it's, you know, stranger things have happened, right? I don't think we'll hit these numbers, but man, if you don't have Chivalrous Competitors right now, these are going to be some dark days ahead for you as you wait for this to find a reasonable price yet again. Next up is Season the Advantage, and I've got the Victory one and the regular one here. These are actually looking relatively cheap this week. I think it's a pretty good time to be picking these up if you don't have them and if you don't want to use redemption on them. If you're wanting to conserve your points or just make sure that you have the foil ones, I think it's a very solid time to pick up some Season the Advantages. Funny that we're talking about Chivalrous and Season in the same week. It's kind of funny. Next up that I want to talk about is Release and Disinformation Success, specifically the Buy a Box promos. These have seen crazy prices ever since they dropped, but specifically it's these two that have been the problem child. We had a handful of them sold in like the $80 range when it first happened, and then now that's kind of become the standard for them ever since. Look at this: 4 at 70, 1 at 90, 2 at 80, 3 at 80, 2 at 81. This is a crazy price point, and Destin is basically the exact same way. Look at that, man. 75, like an auctioneer, man. 70s, now they're in the 80s. These are crazy. Now, why am I talking about these though? Because they're obviously nuts. But the main reason I'm talking about them is because as we speak, shops are sending out tons and tons of these buy a box promos. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but they are sending a lot of these to stores so that they can give them out as promos for their sealed play events. They're encouraging stores to hold some sealed play events, and they're giving out these buy a box promos, the whole set, including the latent skill, the irrefutable force of nature, and the constantly improving. And then I'm pretty sure that the Release and the Destined are short printed, or at least the Release is, because a lot of people are talking about how they're pulling like one release out of like 10. I don't know if that's just like the you know, bad shuffling on Jasco's part, or if it is actually short printed, but either way, these are still very hard to get, so they're going to end up more expensive no matter what. But I think that now that stores are getting a ton of these, there's going to be a lot more going out into the wild, meaning we could see some pretty significant drops on these. I don't know how significant, it's really hard to say because they're so insane already, but I don't think it's a good time to buy these at these crazy prices. You got to keep an eye on them and see how this new influx of all of these other ones from the sealed play events coming into the market changes the prices, because it's going to lower them in some capacity for sure. How much, I can't be sure for the time being, but there will definitely be a significant drop in them. Next, I'm going to talk about both Excited for Bloods, because as they like to continue being, they're the same price for now between the normal one and the XR, which is really funny. This is still, you know, pretty much what they cost. The $20 to $25 range is usually what you've been paying for this card for like the last 6 months. So if you want them, buy the XR right now because they're the same price. I think it's a good pickup. This is pretty much the average price for them, and set 4 is right on the horizon, making this card substantially more usable with a lot of the toga builds, and of course if you're just going to play the evil symbol in general, because it looks a lot better after set 4. Next up is Ice Gliding. Speaking of symbols that look a lot better after set 4, the Order symbol got a lot of love. The Order symbol was significantly absent in the metagame after Heroes Clash came out because set 3 just wasn't very kind to it, but set 4 is looking to be a lot sweeter to the Order symbol, and there's a lot of nice cards in there. So I have Ice Gliding here, but honestly, any of the cheap Order staples, it can be a really good time to pick those up right now, just in preparation of your Order decks looking a lot better once set 4 drops. Next up, we got Surviving the Finals, and this one is actually creeping its way up there. It's been like $3, $4, $5 for a very pretty much the entire history of it, and it's starting to find its way up to $10, which is kind of interesting. Might be a good time to get these last few at $10. They might get crazy after that. It's pretty tough to say, but once again, Evil looking a lot better in set 4. It's a good time to pick up all of those Evil staples right now, and in general, this card has seen a lot of play in water and death decks around the whole horizon, so $10 for Surviving the Final, not a bad price, especially when it might get worse. Next up, let's talk about these Gen Con promos, guys. Meteor Shower, there is one playset in stock at $35. This one has sat at like the 25 range for a really long time now. All Might, guys, he's just gone. There's no more All Mights. There's no more All Mights. The last few sold at like 15, and then eventually to $20, and then at $30, and now they're just gone. And lastly, Capture Evildoers, we got one in stock at 15, and that's kind of also what they've been historically for a good while now. So these Gen Con promos are finally starting to dry up. The Meteor Showers were one of the most desired ones upon release, so it's pretty understandable that these have finally seen a buyout. These have been pretty desired for quite a long time. It's an absolutely beautiful card. So really, all of these, you kind of just have to wait and see if they're going to come back in stock. They could come back with a vengeance. They could just come back at their market prices. It's hard to say, but it is worth noting that, again, these old promos, it's really crazy because when these first got announced, everyone thought that they were going to be like astronomically large prices. And then everyone and their mother was trying to sell them immediately to pay for their Gen Con trips. And the market was so oversaturated with them that they found really cheap prices. Meteors were like 15, $20. All Mights were like $2 or $3. The Capture Evildoers were like $8, $9. It was so cheap for all these promos because everyone was trying to sell them. Now things are a lot different. The market has dried up quite a bit when it comes to these, and they're actually finding some really real prices now. And it's just worth noting that you should be keeping an eye on all of these Gen Con promos, or just these promos in general, because this is what can always happen when the global supply of a card just is limited. There's not going to be any more of these ever. Maybe they bring them back for next Gen Con, maybe they don't, who knows. That's the only thing that I think is worth waiting for when it comes to seeing if these are going to get any cheaper. Speaking of promos, I also want to talk about Instant Explosive release because there's only one left in stock, and there's a couple others. I think the Jiro character card, there's only a couple left in stock as well. A lot of these RLEs are also just starting to dry up quite a bit. Same situation with the RLEs, man. We're not gonna get any more of them on the market anytime soon. So when they get this low, it's really worth keeping an eye on them and seeing if they come back with a vengeance, or if you got in while the getting's good. Basically, you got in like the last few cheap ones ever. Next up, going into set 1, I've got the regular Destined for Mainstream Success XR here. This one has seen some really crazy numbers going back and forth for quite a while now. It's really settled in like the $12 to $15 range now, but it's worth noting that this one might become even cheaper as the buy-a-box ones become much more accessible. I think there's going to be an interesting relationship between those two because a lot of people who couldn't afford the buy-a-box ones had just settled to maybe just buy the XRs to get shiny versions for their decks. So worth keeping an eye on either way. These might get a lot cheaper. Alternatively, if the ones coming in from the sealed play don't actually affect the buy-a-box Destined price that much, this one could stay the same or even increase. Next up is Wallcling. Wallcling's seen a really cheap history in kind of like the recent few months, and now they're finally starting to climb their way back to the supremacy that they once held. This one is becoming a lot more expensive as time goes on, and I think if you don't have a set of these, you should be looking to pick them up before they get even more expensive. Wallcling is just a card that's going to be played until the end of time, really. It's still some of the best premier throw hate even in something like Standard, so it's really just always a good card to have these expensive playsets of. Next up, I want to talk about a few evil cards. I've got Sticky Balls here, I've got Desperate Times here, I've got Creepy Realization here. Either way, these evil symbol staples, like these cheap evil symbol staples across set 1 and even set 2, there's quite a bit too, things like Rooftop Vantage and stuff like that. These are really cheap right now. They're all kind of in like the few dollar tech bin, as I like to call it, and I really think that a lot of them are worth picking up before they get too expensive, especially with set 4 on the horizon. Like the evil symbol is really what I want to highlight going into set 4. A lot of people, even if evil only gets like a little bit better from set 4, people are going to want to play the evil symbol just because like it's hype. People go, oh, I've got a villain deck, I've got to play it on the evil symbol. Ooh, villains, you know. It's just like what people are hyped up about, man. And so a lot of these cards that have only seen a few bucks in the dollar bin could start seeing some really real prices. Going into set 1 promos, honestly, all of the RLE promos are always worth talking about, but specifically this week, I want to look at Gravity Lift because it's only got a playset left in stock, and I want to look at Jolt that's finding its way up to the meme price number here, who also only has 6 in stock. These are also ones that you kind of have to keep an eye on. They really they go back and forth between being like 1 left in stock or like a handful of them, and then they find like a more reasonable price, and then a few of those get bought, and the people who only have a few left go, oh my god, I can make this like 70 bucks now, and they have to buy it because I'm the only one. And then more get listed at a lower price, and they kind of like really ebb and flow off of that relationship. But for the most part, you can find most of these in like the $50 to $60 range. Anything more than that is probably just people trying to take advantage of a situation, so always worth keeping an eye on them. I would not buy Jolts at this price. You can find Jolts right now on the Facebook groups for more in like the 55 to 60 range, and I think you should be taking advantage of the Facebook sell groups when you can, because most of the time a lot of the things on TCG, their prices reflect off of. If I'm trying to sell a card on the Facebook group, I'm gonna go look at the TCG price, and I'm gonna go like 5 or 10 bucks under it if it's like a really expensive card, right? Something like this, just because I want to make the sell a lot quicker than TCG player will. So I don't think these are like the best prices for these right now. I think you could find them a little cheaper if you worked hard enough, but if you do really want them, again, I don't think you're ever gonna find them significantly cheaper, just because once again, we're never going to have more of these. As they get bought, that's all that's ever going to exist, and eventually the well is going to dry up, because every single Grav Lift, every single Jolt will be owned in the hands of someone who wants to play them and not get rid of them until they finally do decide to get rid of them. And that's going to be it for this week's Wealthy Aspirations, guys. Again, big thank you to everyone who's provided some really awesome feedback on the new format. I personally like it a lot better. I think it's a much more watchable video. The content before just didn't feel as informative as it could. It didn't feel as concise as it could, and I think that I'm able to pack a lot more into a very similar time frame with these, and I'm glad you guys agree. We're going to keep doing them this way until I think of even more ways to improve the series, because there's always nowhere to go but up when it comes to stuff like this. But if you just made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. If you really enjoyed it, please feel free to leave me even more feedback. Again, as we improve the series, as we're constantly improving, if you will, more and more feedback is going to be super pivotal to me, and so I'm always looking for that. And of course, if you liked it, hit the like button, and if you want more content like it, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to support even further, you can hit the join button down there too, which is going to give you access to some sweet perks like badges and emotes when I stream on YouTube, and of course support me even further. And if you want some personalized videos that you can commission yourself directly from me, you can check out my Patreon as well, which is going to offer you a lot of ways to decide what videos I make and get some interactive one-on-one experiences with me through that content. If all of that sounds great, I'm gonna have the links to everything in the description and in the pinned comment down below so that you can check it out. But if you just made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much. I really am grateful. That's all the time I've got for today, but I hope I can see you in the next one.